Good morning, friends. It's Sunday, and I just woke up not long ago, jumped in the shower. My mouse dropped off my table, so I'm trying to put it together, but it's not working. It's very cheap. I keep telling myself it's just cheap. It's a cheap mouse, but I want it to be fixed. Okay, anyways, I just hopped in the shower real quick, threw on some mascara and some eyeliner. That way I can hurry up and come talk to you guys real quick. So I left off, I'd gotten saved, my life was turning around, and I had gotten very involved in my church. I was saved in November, and then in January I started volunteering with the youth group. I finally felt like a purpose, like everything I had been through was for a purpose. It was so that I could help teenagers kind of cope with what they're going through, or hopefully talk to them and prevent them from going through what I went through, and hopefully helping them not make the same mistakes I did just by being a witness to them. But in April, I met someone, and I actually met him at church. So, wait a minute, did I meet him at church? I'm just kidding. I met him out one night, and he asked me what I was doing for Easter, and Easter turned out being on a Sunday, obviously. But I was like, oh, I'm going to church, and he was like, well, what church do you go to? I said, oh, I go to New Spring, and he said, really, that's where I go. So we ended up going to church together, and he was kind of dorky, and he wore glasses, and he was just so not what I had dated before. So that kind of attracted me to him, and I kind of felt like, hey, he goes to church, this is awesome. And so we started dating, and I really thought that he was the best thing that walked earth. I thought, here I am getting my life together, and God sent me someone. He sent me someone to show me that there are real men still out there. And so we started dating, and then in August he asked me to marry him, and then in October we got married. So we both were I got him involved in the youth group, so we were both involved in the youth group. And then the next year I found out that I was accepted into the internship for the church, and I just kind of, I applied for the internship on a whim. I was kind of like, God, if this is what you want me to do, because it just kind of popped up on my computer one day, and people at church have been talking about it, so I wasn't sure if it was something that I wanted to do, or something that God wanted me to do. So I prayed a lot about it, and I was like, God, if I do this application and I get accepted, then I'll know that's where you want me to be. And I was working at the time, so that would mean that I would have to quit my job and do this. So it was a big jump that I was going to have to make. So I got in, and I felt like everything was falling into place. I'm married. I have a good husband, and it's just everything's falling into place. So I quit my job, started my internship, and then towards the end of my internship, it was a 3-month internship, well, I found out I was pregnant. So here I am, overjoyed, thankful, thinking, oh my goodness, this can't be true. You know, I'd already had a miscarriage before, so I felt this happiness before. But I felt like it was different. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I was terrified of what might happen. I kept thinking, oh my goodness, I'm I hope I don't have a miscarriage. Every little thing that happened, like if I was in any kind of pain, if I had any kind of sign that things might turn around and go downhill, I called my doctor. But so the whole time I had high anxiety, even though I knew not to. I knew to trust in God. I knew that He gives good things to those who love Him and those who serve Him. But in the back of my head, there was still that voice saying, something could happen. This might not be for you. Something could still happen. So a couple months into the pregnancy, let me back it up a little bit and give you some backstory. So when I met him, my ex-husband, there were a few red flags, but I was so head over heels that I didn't pay any attention to them. So some of the red flags were like he would get blackout drunk, and even when I would ask him not to, I'd be like, no, please don't do this tonight. He would get blackout drunk. I remember one night he was shot after shot after shot. I'm like, what in the world? He was like, oh, I'm so stressed. There's just a lot going on, blah, 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 excuses. And so that was one red flag. And then another one was I was helping him clean up his room at his roommate's house one time because it was absolutely filthy. So I was helping him clean up his rooms, and I found a little baggie. And I was like, what's this? Because, I hadn't ever actually seen that before. And he said, oh, well, that was something from my past, blah, blah, blah. It had some pills in it, some Adderall, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay. So that was another red flag. And then I also found out that he had went to a rehab and that he had been arrested before. I was like, I've done a lot in my past. I have a past as well, so I'm not going to judge him on his past. He told me that he went to rehab because he had gotten pulled over for drinking and driving, and his parents freaked out and told him that he had to go to a rehab for his drinking. So I was very gullible, I guess. So, okay, so I didn't know how bad, like how it is to get into the rehab. You have to call every single day. You have to be very persistent on getting in this rehab. But, so I was like, I'm not going to judge him on his past. He's been saved. I have a past, so I'm not going to judge him for it. Okay. Fast forward to I'm pregnant, and it's a couple months later, and we're living in our apartment. He's asleep, and I just felt a little suspicious, so I started going through his phone. And you never want to be in a relationship where you feel like you have to look for things. You never want to feel like that your significant other that you love and trust is hiding something. But I was going through his phone, and he had a friend, and his name was in there, first and last name. And then there was another person in there that was it was like, okay, so I don't want to say this person's name, but it was, his first name started with a W, and his last name started with a D. So it's like, okay, that's who that is. And then the second message that was in there was from a Willie D. I was like, why does he have two different numbers for the same person? And I know that's the same person. So I started reading through the text messages, and it was saying stuff like, oh, well, I'll meet you here. Talking about meeting up places. And I'm like, what in the world? Why is he? This is not making any sense. So I get a little more suspicious, and I get his keys. I go out to his truck, and I start digging through his truck. And I find a mirror up under the passenger seat, and in his glove compartment I find a rolled up dollar bill and some straws that had been cut. I was like, what the heck? So at this moment my whole body is filled with like anxiety, I'm sitting there thinking, I don't need to get worked up about this. I do not want to lose this baby over my stress and anxiety. So I'm trying to stay calm, but at the same time I'm fuming. So, like, just talking about it now gets me worked up. I want to just, ugh. But, on the mirror, it had, like, some powder residue. So I'll march in there, and I'll wake him up, not in a nice way. And I'm like, what is this? Explain to me what this is. And he tries to deny it. Oh, making up stupid excuses. And, so he ends up admitting that he's got a problem. He's been crushing up pills and snorting them. And I make him find the other 2 pills any other pills that he had, I made him find them and give them to me. And it turned out being, I think it was morphine that he was snorting. So he tells me, oh, I've been doing this for a few months. It's because my back's been hurting so bad. I was like, well, why don't you go to the doctor? And he's like, no, this is this is nothing. I can stop. I'm going to stop. I know we're having a baby. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I get the rest of the pills and I flush them down the toilet. And I was like, you've been volunteering with teenagers in their most impressionable years while you've been snorting pills. I was like, you can't volunteer anymore. You can't. I was like, you need to go talk to someone right now. You need to go talk to someone. So he called someone from the church and he went and talked to him, came back crying, very remorseful, saying he was going to quit. That was something, it wasn't so far that he couldn't quit on his own. I was like, well, we're going to tell your parents. We're going to tell your parents. He's like, no, please don't tell my parents. Please don't tell them. So we don't tell them, but I do tell my mom because I was like, we've got to tell somebody in the family. Someone needs to know. So I tell my mom, and, you know, she's really worried. And so a few months go by, and I start noticing, I mean, I'm so suspicious, even though he's told me and that he's quit, I'm still really suspicious about it. So I've been going through his phone. I'll follow him. Y'all, I went straight on private detective. I would follow him in the mornings. If I didn't have to work, but he did, I'd follow him to make sure he'd go to work. Or I would text one of his friends at work and I'd be like, hey, is he there? Just to make sure that he was at work. Well, he got to where he was just being really, you know, I can stop. And his parents are devastated. And, you know, and it's fun, and that was his past. Turns out he had a problem before, and everybody thought I knew because I knew that he had went to rehab, but he told me it was for alcohol. Turns out it wasn't. It was for a pill problem. And so they're like, you know, you need help. And he's like, no, I don't. I'll be fine. I'll show everybody where my money's going, blah, blah, blah. Well, we end up having to, so we were buying a house. We moved in with his parents. I'm like, this is going to be good so that his parents can help me, you know, keep him accountable and stuff like that. So we finally closed on the house, and let me tell you, that was just a horrible experience. And now looking back, I know that it was because he wasn't all there. He wasn't giving them what they needed at the time, because it felt like it was so stretched out. Like, I was like, we are never going to get in this house. Well, I was due in March, and we finally moved into the house in February. And I could tell that something was going on because he would, like, leave me. It was really weird. I could just tell that something else was happening. He wasn't all there. He wouldn't come to all my appointments with me, and it was very weird. He seemed disconnected. So I ended up going into labor. Wait, no. Okay, so I went into labor a couple of times, and they had to stop my labor because it was too early. So one night that we were in triage, I was like, man, he's on something. This is so embarrassing, because he was up and down, up and down, up and down. He couldn't just sit there, up and down. tripping over my IV machine and in and out, in and out. It was very embarrassing. But, so we go home, and I don't know if I was trying to ignore it or what. Sorry, my dog wants me to throw her toy. Go get it. I don't know if I was just trying to put it off and just kind of imagine that nothing was really happening. But, so that happened twice. I ended up staying in the hospital overnight one time, and he just kind of slept through the night. It was just really embarrassing while I'm up because the IV machine's going off, or all these noises in the hospital. You can't really sleep in a hospital. But he slept just fine. So I got sent home, and then just a week later, I am in the bottom of our closet where we have a whole ton of clothes because we had just moved in, and I'm trying to fold clothes and get them put up. Well, my water breaks, and so I'm like, oh my God, freaking out. And then he starts freaking out, and he drove me to the hospital. Turns out he drove me to the hospital while he was high, and that night he was tripping over my IV machine again. And this time we're like, obviously the baby's coming because my water is broke. So, I was scared. She was 3 weeks early. She wasn't supposed to be here yet. I was supposed to, the nursery wasn't done because he wouldn't get himself together. He wouldn't go upstairs and help me do stuff. I was miserable when I was pregnant. I don't know. I mean, my bones hurt. I felt sick all the time. So I obviously couldn't do it by myself. But he would not do it. He'd be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. So the nursery was never finished. But she ended up, I went into labor that night around 10:30, and my family and everybody was up there at the hospital, and he didn't want anybody to be in the delivery room with me, so he's asleep, sleeping like a baby, and I am in the most pain I've ever been in. And I call my mom crying. She's out in the waiting room, and she comes in there, thankfully, and calms me down. And because I'm on Pitocin, because I wasn't dilating, so I was just in tremendous amount of pain. Well, that morning she ended up making her way into the world, and y'all, that was the happiest moment, even though I knew that my husband was messed up, and it was a very miserable experience. My epidural only, I could fully feel one of my legs. So, I mean, it was horrible. I was in so much pain the whole time. And then the minute she was born and I heard her cry, it was like the world stopped. And I felt like God was saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And so a few months after Finley was born, I'm not getting any help. I'll ask him to do something, he'll complain about it. And I remember one night one of his friends was over, and he went to the bathroom for a little while, and I was like, what in the world, where's he at? And I mean, it's just me and his friend in there watching TV, and I was like, that was weird, why am I hanging out with his friend, where's he at? So he ended up being in the bathroom, almost like he fell asleep in the bathroom. So I'm banging on the door. He wakes up and he is very slurring his speech, and he goes to the bed and just lays on the bed. And y'all, when he was like this, he would be very scary, like it wasn't him. He'd be evil, kind of. So I ain't gonna mess with him. I told his friend, I'm like, he's passed out in there. So him and I are talking about how he's got a problem. Well, we're back into this argument, like, you need to leave. I'm not going to have this around my child. He breaks down again, blah, blah, blah. Says he's going to get help. I'm like, okay, well, you need to get help then. That's what needs to happen. Well, I'm just cleaning, and I find a little baggie with some white residue in it up on top of our kitchen cabinet, and a credit card and a straw where you could tell what he was doing. And I was like, this is the last straw. You need to get out. I'm leaving. When I come back, you need to be gone. Well, that was a whole crazy crazy thing. I mean, he ended up hiding from people. It was awful. And at that moment, I was like, this ain't gonna work. Well, turns out he goes into rehab, and I felt like, okay, he's gonna get better this time. This is gonna be good. And then I was like, he's told me this a million times. He's told me he was gonna get help, and I had to threaten to leave him for him to go get help, and it just kind of made me separate myself from him. I was like, I'm not gonna raise my daughter with someone who isn't getting help for himself. He's doing it so that I won't leave. And so I ended up filing for divorce once they got out. And this video has been 21 minutes, so I'm gonna stop now, and I'll probably return maybe sometime this week. I'm going to try to. I actually start a new job tomorrow, and I'm so excited. And so if you guys can pray that, because I hate training, man. I hate training for a new job. It drives me crazy. I just want to know everything so I can do my job and do it well. But just say a prayer for me as I start my new job tomorrow. And thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, again, just reach out to me on my Facebook page or at my last name, or you can reach out to me on YouTube somehow. You can comment, subscribe to my channel, please. That would be awesome. And share my video if you feel like someone could connect with me. Yeah, just reach out to me. Thanks, guys. Bye.